Welcome to Revelation Unraveled. I'm your host, William Tapley, also known as the third eagle of the apocalypse and the co-prophet of these end times. I don't know if you heard about it or not, but last week, a Russian nuclear bomber crashed and burned in a great explosion at a Russian airbase near the Arctic Circle. And I'm sure it had been on a reconnaissance mission near the Canadian and American borders. As Sarah Palin used to say, I can see Russia from my back porch. And she lived in Alaska. And the reason Russia builds these air bases in the Arctic Circle near the United States is because that is where they will launch a nuclear attack against the United States if they start World War III. And I believe Almighty God caused this crash, or at least used it, so that he could give a warning to America and Russia not to start World War III. Now here's a photograph of the plane crashing, and it was a horrific sight, and you can look up the videos on it here on YouTube. It's a horrible thing because 3 of the 4 crew members on the plane died. And here is a picture of the plane. It's a Russian plane, and it's fairly old model, but it is nuclear capable, carrying of nuclear bombs, although they said it was not armed at the time. And here's what they said. This was the press release. I believe this was just yesterday. Russia has grounded its Tu-22M3 fleet until the end of probe into the causes of Tuesday's air crash that killed 3 crew members. That number is significant. 3 of the 4 were killed. The 4th survived. All 4, I believe, indicate the 4 beasts in Daniel, chapter number 7, which is about war between the United States, Russia, and Britain. Let me continue here. For now, all Tupolev 22M3s have been banned from flying until the causes of today's crash becomes clear, TASS reported, quoting an unnamed source in the law enforcement as saying Wednesday, a Tupolev 22M3 bomber crashed on Tuesday afternoon while trying to land at an airbase near Olenogorsk, the Murmansk region. 3 crew members died. 1 survived. A source in the law enforcement said that according to early estimates, the pilot's mistake made in bad weather was to blame. I believe the reason was so that God could give a warning to Russia and America not to start World War III. That's why you haven't heard about this in the American news media. Now I want to show you from Daniel. And remember, Daniel is a prophet of these end times. That's why Jesus refers to Daniel, and only Daniel, in the Olivet Discourse when he is telling his apostles about the end times. So let's look at Daniel chapter 7, verse number 3. And 4 great beasts, one from another, different one from another, came up out of the sea. And verse number 4. The first was like a lioness. Now, some Bibles say lion, but that's incorrect. This first beast is a lioness. It refers to Great Britain. And had the wings of an eagle. The wings of an eagle refer to the United States, the colonies at the time, 13 American colonies. And I beheld till her wings were plucked off. That refers to the American Revolution, when the colonies left Great Britain. And she was lifted up from the earth and stood upon her feet as a man, and the heart of a man was given to her. That means that Great Britain remains a great country, even though she lost her colonies. In fact, she is one of the world leaders today. And verse number 5, and behold, another beast like a bear. And of course, the bear is a symbol for Russia. Stood up on one side, and there were 3 ribs in the mouth thereof. And I'll talk about that in a minute. And in the teeth thereof. And thus they said to it, "Arise, devour much flesh." And that's what Russia will do in World War III. And verse number 6. "After this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard." The leopard symbolizes the United States. The leopard has black and white spots. That symbolizes the racial makeup of the United States. "And it had upon it 4 wings as of a fowl." Those 4 wings symbolize the 4 branches of the military, which sit on the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, and the Marines. "And the beast had 4 heads, and power was given to it." The power refers to, of course, America's dominion as a world superpower, and the 4 heads symbolize the 4 heads of our government: the President, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, the head of the Senate, that would be the Vice President, and the Speaker of the House. And so now let's read about the 4th beast, the kingdom of the Antichrist. "After this I beheld in the vision of the night, and lo, a 4th beast, terrible and wonderful and exceedingly strong. It had great iron teeth, eating and breaking in pieces and treading down the rest with his feet. And it was unlike to the other beasts which I had seen before it, and it had 10 horns." This is the famous beast in the book of Revelation also. The last beast, the final beast, the 8th beast, which is of the 7th. And the 7th is international communism. The whore of Babylon, which the scarlet beast defeats, represents Britain and America. Let's take a look again at that beast like a bear. "There were 3 ribs in the mouth thereof." What do those 3 ribs symbolize, which it devours and much flesh of? Those 3 ribs symbolize the first 3 beasts: the lioness, the bear, and the leopard. In other words, the bear not only defeats the lioness and the leopard, that is Britain and America, but it also causes its own destruction in World War III. And this is exactly what the Antichrist wants. It wants to bring down these 3 great beasts, and it will do so in World War III, which leads to the 4th beast, which is his kingdom. So now I want to refer to the 3 crewmen who died on that Russian nuclear bomber crash, and it's very interesting. The first one was named Alexei Guriev, and Alexei means helper. That means that help, that virtue, is one of the things that will be destroyed in World War III. The second Russian was Konstantin Mizuna. Konstantin means steady or constant. That will be destroyed in World War III. The third crewman was Victor Graf. Victor, of course, means victor. There will be no victor in World War III. The 4th beast will be the real victor. In other words, the kingdom of the Antichrist. And that is what will follow World War III, unless we can prevent it. Almighty God is using this crash of a Russian nuclear bomber to give us warning to prepare for World War III or to prevent it. And I've told you many times on this program, the answer to our end times problems is to resort to the Blessed Virgin Mary. She is prophesied back in Genesis 3:15 to crush the head of the serpent. The serpent is Satan. In God's marvelous plan, a human being is going to defeat a supernatural human being. And that's the important lesson that we have learned today. Almighty God's messages are serious, but we are in serious times. And I hope you take my warning in this video also very seriously.